want to try and do the same thing. You don't want it to go all the way through to the wheel head, so you want to be aware that you're going to have to use your sensory, like your sense of feeling and depth perception to make sure you leave a little bit on the bottom. So, wet it. My hands are resting on the side, sort of around it, though they're not pushing or anything, and I'm going to push straight down, keeping the wheel going at a reasonable speed so it can push down. So there's a bit of muscle, nice steady pressure straight down, and then I don't want to go all the way through. So I reckon I've got about that much. Might be a bit more, might be a bit less, but I can tell that there's still going to be a good base. Then you're going to open it further, so you're going to actually give it a bit of a floor. So your two thumbs, you're going to put them in, and then you're going to draw your hands in opposite directions from the floor of the pot. So my hands are going to sort of go like that on each side with equal pressure. So I'm centered over. Doesn't have to go as fast. And as you do that, you can sort of feel all those little rings, like the rings of a tree, go through your fingers. So you don't need to do anything super quickly, because you can actually pull things off center if you do it too fast. And at this stage, compress that floor. You'll see here, I've actually got a little bit of a knob in there. Sometimes you'll have a little hollow, sometimes it might be perfect, but in this case, you're going to take the finger, you might want to take your index finger. I often use my longest finger. I'm triangulating again, so I'm locked in triangulating, but I'm going to rest it on the bottom, and it's just like I'm going to follow those rings back into the center, and all I'm doing is trying to compress a little. Just a gentle pressure. You're not trying to push and make it any deeper. You're just trying to smooth out any ridges or hollows or peaks. And what you've done then is you've compressed those molecules a bit, so again you're making that base stronger. And here we go, we're going to put the water in. Now we're going to draw up the walls of the pot. And it's the same premise as when you were coning. When you're coning to center, when you're centering up and down, and coning that, you're putting pressure and pushing, like pressure in, and then following it up. You're doing the same thing, but this time you lock your thumbs in, and you're going to put your fingers. You can use your index if you want. Often that's the best when you're first learning. If you're more comfortable with other fingers, by all means. I tend to use more fingers than just one now. So you just want to be sitting on the floor on one side of that wall and on the bottom on the other side. So when you push in, you're going to be, you don't want to do it, you don't want to push too firmly. You just want to start drawing that clay up, and then you're going to be distributing it throughout that wall. So the wheel's not going as fast now. You've got more control. Triangulating, I'm centered, ballast, a little bit of water, and I'm going to push, and if on the side you can probably see that ridge going up. So I'm just gently, all those rings are going through my finger, just letting that go back and forth. When I get to that top, no pressure at all. I'm just letting it slide right through. And then I'll just take my two left fingers. It's a little bit too dry, this is sticky, so I'm going to make sure there's some water. Into my two left fingers, just rest them on either side, and then rest one of my right hand fingers on. And you're consolidating that rim. And that helps because you're going to stretch that rim out. It makes it a nice strong rim. It's going to be probably the thinnest part of your pot ultimately. And you're going to want to be able to flip it over when you go to trim it. So every time I draw a little bit of the clay up from the bottom and redistribute it out throughout the wall, I'm going to be just remembering to compress the rim. So you always want to take any water that's settled out. And the reason for that is you don't want, if it settles in, it weakens that pot. It'll make it floppy and wet. And so you're always taking it out, and then you put it right back again. So it seems a little silly, but you do it. And the left hand, the thumbs touching, centered, right down the bottom. Now I'm going to push in, and I'm going to follow that little ridge all the way up, and I'll stop. I'll start decreasing the pressure. There's a lot of muscle, more muscle going in at the bottom, because I'm drawing some clay up. And then I start to release the pressure somewhat from about halfway up to the very top when there's no pressure at all, because that rim is about as thin as I want it to be right now. I don't want that any thinner. And I want to try and make the walls all the same thickness. This, you can't do this all at once. This has got to be done as a process. You'll find that if you do try and do it too quickly, you can often pull it off center, or you'll do it and you'll have a thin bit in, like if it's too thin down at the bottom and it's thicker up top, it'll end up twisting it. So it is just, there's a lot of things where you just need to do it as a process. And as you get really, really accomplished with it, you'll discover your own shortcuts, and as long as you get the same results, you can sort of find your own way. But this is just sort of more of a fail-safe way. So back in, again, I can feel it's thicker down there. So I'm just going to draw that up, nice and slowly, straight towards me. No pressure at all. Now I'm just letting it slide through my fingers when I get to the rim. I'm going to put a little more water on the rim, and then just consolidate it. Now it feels to me as if I've got, this feels down here, like down here, feels about the same thickness as up here. So I don't want to take any more out. That's as much as I'm going to get out of that ball. Now I'm going to end up shaping it. So it's going to be the same process where I'm going to take my more clay here, and I was wanting to make, let's say, a globe vase or a teapot body. I would be pushing it and supporting on the outside to get the outside curve. But then when I was wanting to reverse it and go in, the inside would be supporting, and I would be guiding from the outside. So you're not actually narrowing or distributing the clay, you're just guiding it at this stage. So again, you need